What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing tonight? We're back again for the weekly Hangout Coffee and Cigars live stream here on the OnoLive channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Jay, your host. As every week we do this at 8 p.m. Eastern, hanging out with coffee and then cigars. And it's just a nice time. We got a little community here that's really great. So welcome. Glad you're here today. Today is Thursday, February 2nd. Wow, the month of 2023 has gone superbly fast. Super fast. What's going on, Brian? Good to have you here. Mom, good to see you. How are you? Welcome to the show. Always good to see all of you. Thank you for tuning in. And today got a little funky music going on here. I don't know if that's too loud compared to my voice, but we'll see what we can do about that. But so what's going on? How are you guys doing tonight? What are you guys planning on smoking? What are you drinking? Are you inside or outside? I haven't been outside in a few hours, so I thought it was kind of cold, and then for a moment I thought it was a little bit warmer, but then it might be cold again. I don't really know, to be honest with you. I've just been here in my little den, kind of hiding out, getting stuff ready, preparing orders, and cleaning up equipment. So, there it is. There it is. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to do coffee tonight. Oh, there's George Brightman. What's going on, George? Welcome. Oh, of course, absolutely. I will definitely tell you how the competition went. It went overall pretty well, but we'll get more into that as we go along. So today we've got a coffee from that, which is a friend of mine, Sarah, and her business partner, Abdulaziz, own this in Riyadh. I visited them in the shop in December, and we did one of their coffees before. I think we did the Ethiopia. So I'm going to open it from the bottom because they've got this little tab here that I just don't want to cut and make it like this. So if you recall from that last time, this is actually one of those brew bags. And the brew bags are kind of interesting in that you can travel with these, and they're meant, I guess they are meant for travel, but you take them, they come in a sealed pouch, and all you're going to do is take the coffee. We need to get a brewing device. We've got our little glass here. I need to move this around. But our glass is here. Let me just adjust that. How's that looking? Oh, yeah. So we're just going to take this and open it. So you just kind of tear it. Oh, Steven, what's going on, man? How did you get here so early in the show? Good to have you, as always. Good to have you. And George Simmons with us. Oh, man, you know what? I just got this whiff of aromatic coming from the bag. This much, even though it's a Colombia, I was expecting a wash, but there's a super strong, berry, fruity character that really indicates it must be a natural processed coffee. But wow, that's really pretty. It's kind of like a blueberry pie. All right, so we're going to take this. As you can see, it's a bag, like we talked about. Right, it's a bag, and then we're just going to tear it open. So it kind of says open here, as you can see. So we're just going to peel it off, put that to the side. And as you can see here, you just have to open the bag up a little bit, pull the wings. Then we're going to set it as thus, so you can see how it just kind of hovers there in this. Yeah, this is definitely an interesting way to do it. Definitely. Rusty's here too. What's up, Rusty? How are you, man? Good to see you. All right, so as you can see, it's kind of hanging, right? Kind of hanging, and then we've got it here. So now it's just a matter of pouring the water. So I've got this water just off the boil, and we're just going to pour it in here. You know what? I forgot to weigh this, and I don't remember what we weighed the last time. So we're going to add a little bit there. You can see it's brewing up. George says that he always has trouble with the clip that hangs on the side of a glass of craft. Yeah, you know, I mean, I would normally be concerned about whether or not this would stay, but it looks like it's doing pretty well today. So, all right, that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. I'm going to add some more water. Of course, because it's such a small bag, it doesn't hold much water. And I did make the mistake of not weighing it. Although, let me try weighing it. See if I can grab another bag. Grab another scale there. Let's see the scale. Put that on there. 19.6 grams with the bag. So let's say, you know, I don't know, 16, 17, 16. So for that, we don't want to go past 8 ounces. And Brian says he's smoking a Julius Caesar. Yes, that ends in ER, not AR. Okay. A Julius Kaiser. And then George says, not to go backwards, but I hope all you regulars with the idea of having an Irish coffee contest next month. I think we're open to that. I think we're still open to that. Steve's having a Padron 4000. Excellent. Those are always very nice. But yeah, definitely we can get for the Irish coffee. I think that would be a lot of fun. So we're going to presume there's 16 grams of coffee. And we're going to look here to the side. There's an 8-ounce marker right there. So we're going to brew right up to that point. Once we reach the 8-ounce, then we're going to stop. So even if we put just a little bit more than 8 ounces, we will still be okay to stop at the 8-ounce mark, which is right about there. Excellent. So I'll let you see. As you can see, there's still a little bit more there. I'm just going to take this, grab it by the handles. Oh, look at that. It's like a little bag pouch. Now, that's cute. I like that. I'm just going to toss that in the trash. And there's our coffee. All right. Looks pretty good. All right, let me push this coffee stuff away. Oh, I should have put it back inside the bag. I didn't think about that. All right, we're going to take this. It's got really pretty nose as far as like a fruity character. Pour some of that in here. A little bit of brightness on the nose. It's got a strange, there's a pungency on the palate, coating the mouth. I don't know if I like it. It's pungent, it's bitter, it's producing juiciness in the mouth. Normally, I'm very predisposed to natural processed coffee, but this one tastes very different. I wish there was a little more detail on the coffee on the box. Unfortunately, there isn't much detail on the box, but thank you, Sarah and Abdulaziz. I appreciate the coffee. All right. Oh, and George Shem says, enjoying an alliance while sipping on the Delmore 12. Very nice, very nice. Is that your first allegiance? Allegiance. George says, at least it doesn't look like tea. It only looks like tea. If it does look like tea, it's only because it's such a small quantity and such a nice glass. but it does look heavier than a tea. It is very light as far as the roast profile. The body is light. I don't know if I'm just getting used to it, but the pungency feels a little bit tamer now as we're rolling. It's relatively a cool brew. Like that wasn't, I didn't brew it really that hot. Brian says only Americans drink an 8-ounce coffee. The detail on the box says 8 or 5. The detail on the box doesn't really say much of anything other than the fact of the company, and there's social media details. I'm extrapolating the. I was able to grab one of the bags and weigh it, so it's 19.6 grams total. So I'm just extrapolating that there's probably 3 grams worth of paper product, and it's probably 16, or it could be actually more. It could have been just 14 grams. So it could be a little bit under extracted now. And George Sim, that's his 4th or 5th allegiance. Okay, good. And George Brightman says that the only time I tried a bag brew, it tasted very dirty. You know, I mean, there's one thing about the dirtiness that you're probably tasting. It's not a result of the bag per se. The bag is the brewing method, whether it's a bag or any other brewing method we use, are relatively neutral players in the whole brewing thing. Dirtiness tends to come from the quality of the coffee that you're consuming, and dirty coffees usually, in most cases. So there's dirty and then there's earthy, right? So the dirty ones, you really feel a difference, like the earthy tones in coffee. You'll taste when you taste them, they're more of attributes rather than defects. Whereas the dirtiness, we get a lot of, y'all get a lot of dirtiness in commercial coffees. A lot of that has to do with the way they're handled and processed. This is a clean coffee. It does have this strange pungency. Let's have a little bit more. It's clean, it's bright, it's crisp. Like the aftertaste is quick and fleeting. It's very fast on the palate. I'm enjoying it more as I'm drinking it. Perhaps because I'm getting used to that little bit of pungency that was there. All right, let's get to what George says. Exactly, not earthy, truly dirty. Just bad coffee, I guess. Probably. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of times when you do have those dirty tastes in the coffee, those are really due to the fact of the quality of the coffee. So it's really interesting. Like when I go to places like Uganda, and I usually am hosted by what we call the UCDA, which is the Uganda Coffee Development Authority. And what the UCDA does is that it oversees coffee production throughout the entire country. And in order for you to export your coffee from Uganda, it has to run through the UCDA. And the UCDA basically is just in charge of making sure that they understand the quality of the coffee that's being exported. Now, there is something called the Federación in Colombia that does essentially the same thing. In some respects, the Federación has traditionally been much more restrictive in that the Federación had spent, through the 70s and 80s, they spent millions on developing the profile of what a Colombia coffee should taste like. It's typically washed and relatively clean, and it's tied very tightly with Juan Valdez. So for the longest time, when I got in the business, you could not really export coffee from Colombia that did not fall within the framework of Cafés de Colombia. So the Federación would prohibit the export of non-standardized coffees. And it's understandable. They spent millions building the brand and building a reputation and building a quality level. And so for us to talk to farmers and say, hey, let's do some natural processed coffees. Those natural processed with these kind of funky flavors were so far outside the spectrum of Cafés de Colombia that the Federación wouldn't allow the exportation of those for many, many years. They do allow that now. It is a lot different. But so it works similar in Uganda. And the interesting thing when I go to Uganda is because, the UCDA is usually my host, and I'm usually at their what they call Lugogo, and Lugogo is the name of the neighborhood in Kampala where this particular UCDA office is located, and it's where they do all their quality assurance. So, for example, they have a bunch of cuppers there that, and I'm always fascinated because they don't cup coffees in the way that we cup coffees, right? Like when you're dealing only with specialty level coffees, you're really cupping the coffees to look for attributes, right? Like we do look for defects, right? But once you've gone through a certain level of sorting to make it into the specialty category, a lot of the defects that you see, like in this, there's this poster right here. This poster right here lists defects that are found in coffee. I've very rarely seen a lot of them in my world because a lot of the coffees we buy are very clean in that respect. And so when I go to the UCDA, they're cupping the entire spectrum of coffees produced in the country. And I'm always fascinated to sit in with the cuppers and watch and ask them questions and see, like they're really cupping in a different way. Like we're cupping coffees looking for attributes to tell customers this is what the coffee tastes like, whereas commercial coffees are being sold with by the identification of acceptable number of defects. Oh, George says, "Forgive me, gang. Something has come up, but I have to bounce. Good luck with the Saka Sogi. I'll check back in later, time permits." So I can, of course. Oh, goodness. I hope it's nothing too serious. All right, enjoy yourself there, George. Okay, back to what I'm saying. So when you're preparing commercial coffees, you're looking for acceptable number of defects. So let's say Coca-Cola, for example, will have a contract that'll say, we want these many containers of coffee. We need them to be this level of quality. They can have A, B, and C defects in this quantity. And that's what they'll put together for them. And so it's a whole different way of buying. Like in specialty, we're looking for the best attributes of that coffee. We don't really worry too much about defects because they're pretty much removed. And when we do see them, that's a different question. Whereas in commercial coffees, a lot of the coffees that people drink at the diners and everywhere else, it's really a matter of like, okay, there may be diesel taints to the coffee. How much diesel can we accept in this container? And that's really what it's about. All right, so let us go and get our humidor, the OnoLive Coffee and Cigars official humidor. This thing, thank you, Rusty, was, as if you're not familiar, this was given to me in September 2021 by Rusty when we were at Ridgewood, New Jersey. And look at this thing. This is still the original Boveda. It's a little bit, okay, it's starting to get more dry in the corners. There's some graininess here in the middle. But overall, as you can see, it's a very pliable, very, very pliable thing. Right, and here we are. Muestra de Saka. This was actually given to me this past weekend by a friend of mine. Was it past this? Oh, on Monday. This is Nate Kale gave me this. And I thought, you know what? Let's try it this week. So this is the Muestra de Saka Exclusivo. It's a 6x52 Toro. Well, I guess it's not really considered a Toro technically, but it is, supposed to be an interesting, well, I don't know what it's supposed to be, but basically it's supposed to pay tribute to the different growing regions of Nicaragua by using tobacco from all four of the growing areas. And the growing areas that are included are, of course, Esteli, Condega, Jalapa, and Ometepe. Jalapa and Ometepe are more in the northern part of the country, close to the border of Honduras. And yeah, really simple. There's a little bit of a, band here, this ribbon. And let's put this away. Exclusivo, very simple. I'm going to open it up. Oh, we need our score sheet. Here's last week's. So as you can see, my printer kind of likes to do its own thing. Let's zoom in on this sucker. So I would say it's probably in this range. It's got a light manure spiciness to it. Sometimes you smell this manure and it's kind of sweet, it's pleasant, and it's kind of enticing. This is a little bit more neutral. Like there's a little bit of manure element to it that is on the offensive side. Right? Like we talk about manure being a character in the nose that is pleasant in cigars, right? And sometimes it's sweet, and most of the time, almost all the ways it's pleasant. This is kind of right on that border. It's kind of like neutral, but it's also kind of slightly leaning towards the kind of manure that you kind of would smell and be like, ooh. But not heavy. Don't get me wrong. Like I've got to be sniffing on it hard and really thinking about it to come up with that. All right, so the band slides off easily. Romacraft. And it feels dry. It has a little bit of dryness to it, a little bit of smoothness, but it is relatively a little bit rough feeling. Like as I rub my fingers across the wrapper, it feels a little bit rough. Let me grab my. Oh. Time for the cut. So which way is better for the cut? Oh, that's better, right? So this is the cut. Did that cover the entire? Okay. Cold draw, a little bit of chocolate, like milk chocolate. Very pleasant in that. So I would say the cold draw, very pleasant. Fragrance, kind of, let's put that more of a medium. I'm going to say 775. So which is good. It's like good to almost very good. For me, I thought that it wasn't very good because it did have a little bit of that manure or aromatic fragrance that was trending towards the offensive side. All right. Oh, the last match of this one. All right, starting off, a little bit of spice. Relatively pleasant to start. Some cacao notes, chocolate notes. Now, this particular cigar, or this Vitola, came out originally in 2007. So a lot of the reviews that I found online were from 2007. Now, what I'm curious to know is like let's say we look at this one from Half Wheel. Of course, our buddies down at Half Wheel, we're going to check out what they have to say. This is from May 2007 by Charlie Minato. And there's some interesting verbiage here. So, Muestra de Saka means the sample of Saka. So these are, I guess the idea is that these are supposed to be samples of cigars, maybe like samples that they make when they're producing in the pre-production of cigars. But anyway, it has a quote here that says, Saka says, Muestras are hoarded and coveted not only by their makers, but by the cigar smokers who seek to catch a glimpse into the cigar maker's soul within their smoke. Muestra de Saka is just that, a line of unique blends and vitolas made in extremely limited quantities that reflect the blending machinations of myself. To smoke a Muestra de Saka is to embark upon a journey with me in which I greatly welcome your companionship. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that is some serious pros going on there. You know, one of the things that I wonder, so if you guys aren't familiar, Steve Saka originally was working for Drew Estate. He was, I think, the president or CEO of Drew Estate. And so the Liga Privada line of cigars came out of his domain, meaning that I think the story was that he wanted his own cigar and they prepared the Liga number 9, and that's what started it. And so people loved him for that. But now now that he left Drew Estate, he's now doing his own thing. And what I always wonder is, like, no matter how celebrated Steve Saka is, he's now in a situation where he owns a brand and he must contract with cigar makers, manufacturers, to produce his cigars. Now, I believe in this case, it's the Cuenca family, Dr. Cuenca, and his son that do the cigars for him. And they were partners. They were very close business partners when they were running Drew Estate. But, you know, when you run the company and you run the production, you have a lot of control over the production. But I wonder, like, if you are contracting, you don't really have that level of control. So I wonder how much variation happens within the production of any cigar, even this one or anyone that's not controlled, that you don't control the production with. I wonder about things like that. Brian says, and that's how you market a cigar. Yes, those are some hella heavy words, And so where I'm going with this question is that this was released in 2017 originally. I don't know if this comes from that era or if this is a more recent production release, or should I say more recent release. And I wonder when the production was. And so, like, for example, if they're made in 2016, 2017, and the cigars of this particular size and line are made in modern times, 2022, I wonder how close they are to that. George says, Mets talk Saka, Tony, pre-COVID. Tony, was that through Tony, or are we talking about Tony, our Tony, or some other Tony? Probably 2019-ish. Talking to him was interesting. He didn't hide his opinion. Seemed more interested in how and when I enjoyed. You know, that's one thing about Saka that I must say. Like, I've met him on several occasions, mostly with my buddies from Hawaii. So when, I don't know if they're still doing it, because I have been to the trade show in a few years. But during the trade show in Vegas, they would normally have a Hawaii cigar guys outing, and Steve would always come. And it was always interesting because you'd sit there and Saka would be holding court, talking, sharing his knowledge about cigars. And it was always really, really interesting. I always found it super interesting to listen to him speak. So I do think that he has a lot of knowledge to share. He's happy to share it. He is very strong with his opinions. And I always kind of laugh because when you see him on Facebook, he doesn't post very often. When he does, it's usually because he's upset about something. And then he has this massively long post about whatever is troubling him that week. I also known his sales manager, David Lafferty, for many years now. Good guys, all good guys. Steven says, has anyone out there seen the surveillance balloon floating over the United States? There must be a reason that has not been shut down. Apparently the size of, I saw that earlier today. And if you guys aren't familiar, there is evidently some kind of balloon floating over the United States. Here it is. Floating over Billings, Montana. And who knows what. So this is the balloon. There's some kind of apparatus, looks like here. They say, we are confident that this high-altitude surveillance balloon belongs to China. Instance of this activity observed in the past. It's traveling at an altitude well over commercial air traffic. I must say, Steve's asking, and, this is something that I would imagine. I was asking earlier when I saw this, is like, why haven't we just shot it down? And I do wonder about that. Why haven't we shot it down? Like we would ostensibly have shot it down. But I think maybe they're letting it go for whatever reason. Maybe they're surveilling it. They're tracking it. I mean, the United States is, because invariably, I'm sure we're doing the same thing to them. We probably have balloon surveillance flying over China at the moment. So I think it's always a question of I think sometimes it's a question of they tolerate it. We tolerate it because they'll tolerate it. And, unless they're not, typically they're not going to get too much thing. They're not getting too many things that are really sensitive, but that would be my guess why we've left them alone. George says he met with Saka with Tony. Yes. Okay, great. No, I'm just making sure because I wasn't sure if there was another Tony involved. I mean, I think there's a lot of that. Like, for example, we talk about, people say, oh, how can we let these spies work at the embassies, with diplomatic passports and all this? Well, we do the same thing in other countries. So I think it's one of those things where we kind of tolerate things. As long as they don't go too crazy, we kind of tolerate it because they also tolerate our spying. And Mom says they said they're worried about falling debris. That could be. But they're in Montana. Do we really have to worry about stuff falling down in Montana? There's hardly anyone there. So we're starting off, and it's really quite nice. There's a good level of complexity. It's actually, the complexity is really kind of not mild, but it's deep. It's but it's not in your face. It's really this kind of melding of flavors that's just kind of like tobacco and a little bit of there's hints of fruity, citrusy notes somewhere in there, but it's not, none of it's very apparent, right? It's not coming at you. It's just kind of we're just kind of moving along. So I'm going to scroll down for this in this, what do you call it? This half wheel thing. There's supposed to be 7 that have been coming out slowly. I think one comes out every year. And evidently this is an update from August of 2022. And these are the cigar sizes that have been released. And maybe they're coming out year by year. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. maybe 23. Oh no, 2 and 17, 17, 17, 2008, 2019, 2020, 2020, 2022. So maybe based on this information, maybe this still is from the 2017 production, which would be interesting. I mean, it's smoking really well. There is some resistance as far as the draw, but it's not too much. It just kind of holds you back a little bit so you're not sucking it down too hard. There's a lot of refinement in this complexity and flavor. Now, I am curious with the Half Wheel article to see how much of this has changed or the same since the. All right. Cold draw retains some of the muted prune flavor. I didn't get prune. I got more of that chocolateness and also some of that. Well, the other aromas that was aroma. The aroma intensity is largely medium. Wrapper provides baker's chocolate, some barnyard, dry leaves, and raisins. I think that barnyard really was leaning on the pig barn. Not heavy, of course. So it starts off with lemons, some vibrant toasted breads, and a finish me that reminds me of matzos. And I don't get the matzo part. I can see some of this toasted bread character. There is, like I said, there's a little bit of fruitiness, a little bit of acidity, so it could have been some lemon. Pecan, orange creamsicle, white pepper. White pepper, I would say that's definitely a component. Very dry Ritz cracker. Nice layer mixture of developed flavors, though it's only medium full in intensity. I would say that's still true. While the flavor is remarkable, the construction is not. All three cigars have issues with open draw that leaves a touch-up cigar prevented from going out pretty much from the start. Actually, I'm not having any issues really with the draw. Is a little bit on the tighter side than what we're used to, but like I said, it's not. I don't think it's to the detriment of the smoke yet. I mean, it's a little bit on the tight side, but it's just right. It's just enough to like prevent, like, you know me, I like, well, if I'm enjoying a cigar, I want to puff on it harder, right? This mitigates that. I would definitely say medium full. It's definitely not heavy like some of the other cigars we've smoked, or like some of the other cigars I've smoked this past week. And Steve said, yes, my point exactly. What's up there? What's the debris risk? I mean, as far as debris, I think the debris definitely would be, especially if it's over Montana. I would not be so concerned about debris. Could be that they're waiting to see what it's going to do. But I mean, it's a balloon, so it's just floating. And maybe, you know, I'm sure that they've got not telescopes, but some kind of device that can zoom in and see exactly what kind of instrumentation is on there. It could also be that with the falling debris part, if they were to shoot it down, of course, it's above air traffic, so it's above 50,000 feet, so probably closer to 80,000 feet. Does it say here? But let's say it's above 80,000 feet, and you shot it down, you know, blow up the balloon, and eventually, if it keeps rising, the balloon will pop. Those instruments, whatever they are, they might want to be able to recover them intact instead of letting them fall, you know, without any resistance and just destroy itself. Brian says debris is not an issue since we knew it was coming our way when it was still 300 miles over the ocean. Oh, well, there's a point. That's a good point. I didn't know we'd known by that long. Oh, here in the CNN article, why not shoot it down? We have to do the risk reward here, the official said. So the first question is, does it pose a threat, a physical kinetic threat to individuals in the United States in the U.S. homeland? Our assessment is it does not. Does it pose a threat to civilization, to civil aviation? Our assessment is it does not. Does it pose a significantly enhanced threat on the intelligence side? Our best assessment now is that it does not. So given that profile, we assess the risk of downing it, even if the probability is low in a sparsely populated area, the debris falling and hurting someone or damaging property, that it wasn't worth it. Huh. So I guess there it is. I don't know. We're still smoking, still good. Now, this particular cigar has an MSRP of $15, which isn't too bad. Although I must say, when it comes to Dunbarton cigars, I have come to the point where I'm a little bit on the cautious side. I mean, I like Steve. I like what he's done. But in a number of cases where I've smoked cigars that he's made in this Dunbarton era, I haven't really clicked with them as much as I had hoped. Not to say they're bad, not to say that they're not quality made, just that I hadn't really clicked with the flavor profiles that I've had, which has brought me to a point where it puts a little bit of caution in my mind to select a Dunbarton Trust cigar because it is typically pricier. Steven says, any country in the world would have blown it up, and vaporized it already. No debris. Yeah, but if we vaporize the instruments, then we'll never get to know what they're recording. So we got to recover it in a way that we can harvest the data and see what they're looking at to assess that problem. That's my take on it. That's what I would want to do. I'm thinking that we should get a high-flying aircraft. Let's say the SR-71. Put a hook on it like Batman did in that movie, and then fly by it and then hook it. Hook the balloon, bring it back down, and I think that would solve our problem. Shem says, Saka says he makes Dunbarton to fit his palate. And that's perfectly fine. And I mean, I certainly will make coffee to fit my palate as well. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a question of do you find the cigars to match your own palate, right? And it does make sense if the Liga number 9 was designed to fit Saka's palate. For me personally, the Liga number 9 has always been not one that, after having it a couple of times, it was never one that I wanted to pursue very heavily after, because it just didn't necessarily fit my palate, right? It didn't fit what I like. The T52 Bellicoso Maduro, oh man, that one, the stock cut Bellicoso, Okay, that spoke very well to me. But now that that T52 is $18, it does not speak to me well at all. I do miss it from time to time, though. I used to smoke those quite a bit. To me, right now, the burn is doing very, very well. Like, look at that. It's got nice color of ash, burning relatively evenly. I'm kind of tempted to tap it out because it gets long and I kind of always want to tap it out. But the thing is that when you tap it out, it tends to expose the cherry and then your heat spikes. And I wonder, like, for example, like, does a cigar brand fare as well if the owners are making cigars to fit other people's palates? Right? Like, if we think of the cigars that we really enjoy, for sure I'm going to say Tatuaje. For sure I'm going to say Roma Craft. Pulgamirian to another person. I imagine Padron is similar to this. But these are all manufacturers that are making cigars that they like, that they want to smoke, or started out making that. Whereas other brands that maybe aren't as doesn't have that don't not successful, but that don't have the hype, that kind of fervent following from a certain percentage of cigar smokers. Those I kind of feel like those are the ones that are blending for an audience, right? They're not necessarily blending it for their own personal enjoyment. They're blending it for general acceptance. And I wonder how that affects the reputation. Or at least the fanaticism for that cigar. Would you say that's the first third? No, not yet. All right, so I guess I should be talking about this competition. As you guys know, last weekend I was in this competition, and it's basically a similar competition to the ones that I normally oversee in other parts of the world. So I was able to get a spot in the qualifying rounds for the United States Barista Championship, which means that as a competitor, you come out, you have 10 minutes to present 2 flights of espresso-based drinks to 4 judges. And there's 4 espressos, 4 simmed drinks of your own creation. And I think I showed the drink on one of our live streams, but basically it was oysters and pearls, where we're coating oyster shells in white chocolate, pulling a shot of espresso over it, adding Amarena cherry, cheese, salty cheese foam to it, and a little bit of bitters, and then you slurp it like a regular oyster. Combine the flavors in your mouth, and then evaluate. And it went well. I mean, like, what's the goal there? The goal was really to go participate, compete, and present a drink that I've been thinking about for a while that I thought was kind of fun and interesting. Also, it was from my position as a judge, it's also to like remind myself what is it like to compete, so that I as a judge can maintain a good level of empathy and understanding for what the competitors are facing. Now, I competed for 6 years, so I already have a good baseline of that. But it's been nearly 14 years since I actually competed in these competitions. So, I want to, it's helpful to come back and try it and remember exactly what the stresses are and where, it also will help me to figure out how to help other people figure out their own routines. So in the qualifying rounds, you have they give the top 18 a seeded position into the national championships that are being held in Denver, Colorado, in Portland, Oregon in April. And so really the only thing that you need, like you should be going for first, but all you got to do is make it in. Once you make it in, then you've got the ability to go to the next round and perhaps win then. So total amount of points that are available were 360 points. The top competitor got 336 points, so he did a really amazing job. I, however, did 201 points, so 55.8% of the available points. Not bad. Enough to get me 16th place, so I did qualify to go to nationals. Mom's asking, why did the judges didn't drink the cherry? So in the competition rules, these signature drinks are meant to be drank, not chewed. Part of that came about because many, many years ago, at the very beginning years of the World Championships, this guy, Paul Bassett from Australia, who would eventually go to win in 2002 or 2004, he, in one of the rounds, had used kangaroo meat. He's Australian. As an accompaniment to his signature drink. Once that happened, people freaked out. They made up rules that said you could not eat it, you cannot chew it. It has to be drank. So I told the judges if they wanted to eat it, they could, but they don't have to. It's not meant to be eaten. And that's why they didn't eat this. Only one judge. Was it one judge ate one and one judge and three judges didn't, or is the other way around? I think only one judge ate the cherry, which is, I told them, if you want to try it later, try it, because I think it's really a great component. Like if you haven't had these Amarena cherries from Italy, are just wonderfully delicious cherries. Really great on vanilla ice cream. Like put that on vanilla ice cream. Oh, baby, that's some good toppings. Look at that ash. Quite nice. So that's why they didn't drink the cherries. Steven says the highlight of the Barrett Jackson was a 1989 Ferrari F40 sold for $2.5 million. Holy moly. That was me. Mom says only one did. Okay, only one did. You're right. Okay, perfect. Now, I got 201 points, so I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of things that a lot of that has to do with me not actually preparing properly, right? Like you really need to spend several months seriously practicing. I'm going to tap this out because it makes me nervous to have it. And I think we're close to that first third. Actually, I have a video coming out on Saturday now. I'm just uploading it now to YouTube. That goes through all the score sheets and a full rundown of what happened and what we did and what went wrong. My commentaries on it, the commentaries from the actual judges. So I share the score sheets and the actual scores in the video. So I think that'll be interesting for people that want to see really a little bit deeper into the competition. And what am I thinking here? So the interesting thing about this competition is that while there are 4 sensory judges, only 2 of those judges are scoring judges. The other 2 of the 4 are just there as guest judges. Typically, they'll put judges who are in training or even members of the audience that want to participate. And so those 2 judges, their scores do not count. And because they don't count, it leads to a little bit of an interesting loophole that we were able to exploit. Not for any scoring gain, but more just for our own personal enjoyment. So as you guys know, I do this thing where I go around the world and I oversee competitions around the world. Well, there's actually 3 of us in the United States that do this, and the 2 of the other guys are really good friends of mine, and they happen to be in Baltimore over the weekend. My old friend Scott Connery from North Carolina and Miguel Vicuña from Denver, Colorado. And so we've known each other for a very, very long time, and they were like, we're going to try to get a seat on your panel. And I was like, what? Now, of course, in normal competition, you could never have close friends be seated in a judging position during your presentation. But because there are 2 spots that are essentially non-scoring, they can take it. So it was an interesting and unique position for the 3 of us to be on the same performance. Now, the rest of the judging team, the 2 sensory judges, the 2 tech judges, the head judge, and the shadow judge, I had never met them before because I'm not involved at all with the U.S. competition. So I don't really know the people that are involved with that. So all fresh, all new people, really great. Like I did get to talk to the judges afterwards, very nice people, and really enjoyed it, meeting them. And yeah, so what came out with the espresso, like one of the interesting things that I've been using this machine, this La Valentina, right? This E61 group head, really small vibratory pump. It makes beautiful coffee. But for the competition, we're using Black Eagles from Victoria Duino, 3 group, commercial, super high grade machines. And the way, I always talk about as long as your machine is pulling out, 135 pounds of PSI or 8.5 to 9 bars of pressure, and delivering water at about 198 degrees, everything should be fine. And that's true. Like this does that, and it does a great job. The Black Eagle does it as well, but does it so much more efficiently. So here, click the button, the vibratory pump starts, and it's like, meh. And it's a small pump. It's only about that big. And it takes a few moments for it to ramp up and get to the right pressure to push it out. And it takes a little bit of while. Like I'm not used to, when I first started using it, I was like, well, this is kind of long because I'm used to a Lombrosoco Linea. And so when I got to the venue, to the practice time, you hit the button and it's almost instantaneous that it starts coming out of the portafilter because it just has so much power, because it's using very large rotary pumps that just come to pressure. Like the moment you hit it and the moment the electricity hits that motor, it's almost instantaneous, the pressure. So the way that it extracts the coffee is a little bit different. Different grinder, which meant that, you have to try, you only have like 20 minutes in a practice session to figure out everything. And, the grind settings we got for the coffee were close, but not perfect. Like here, it's perfect because weeks have been spent dialing it in. But on the stage, you've got 20 minutes and, you've got to do everything else too. So we were close, not necessarily perfect. Those were Malconic E80 grinders, which were great, actually. They're really easy to use, quick to program. Actually, I really like them. I really, like, maybe I should get one of these. So, but the biggest difference was the water. So at the competition, they're using formulated water by a company called Third Wave Water. So basically what they're getting is they're getting distilled water delivered, formulating the water from the distilled, and then using that. Now, that formulation is very different than what we use here as tap water in Baltimore. Now, tap water in Baltimore is one of the top 10 waters in America. We have high quality water, beautiful flavor, great taste. But, and when you look at the parameters of the SCA, Specialty Coffee Association Gold Cup Standard, and for water, and then you look at Baltimore's water, at least for the reports that I've gotten from testing that we've done at the different shops, it's all very close. We're very close. We're typically only one parameter is out by 0.005 parts per million, so relatively small. And so we've never really worried about the water here other than filtering it. Oh, it's starting to go out. We may be in a relight situation. But when we pull the shots with this third wave water, the results are very different. Like we're talking before, there's notes of dry dark cherry. That became more like blood orange. The grapefruit was toned down with more acidity. So that necessitated us to rewrite the description. So while we had dark cacao here, it was just more of a lighter cacao. Like instead of being 70% cacao, more like 50%, a little bit more milkiness to it. So these kind of changes and then the change from the dark red cherry or dark dry cherry to more of a blood orange changes the way that, let's say, the cherry from the Amarena interacts with the coffee, and everything changes. And so it's a little bit more tweaking. You just got to be ready for that. And so I tried to make changes to the flavor notes. However, the problem was I just forgot to tell them. So one of the taste categories, zeros. So that was a bit of a ridiculous, thing on my part. Totally going out now. The finish, the aftertaste is very dry. I think the burn has now gone inside the cigar. So are these the construction issues that Minato was talking about? I think it's time for us to do a little bit of lighting. And then we'll look to the first third. All right, let's look at our score sheet. I think we had like kind of more medium-ish body. I think qualitatively it was very good. Flavor-wise, I think it was like we talked about, good, nice complexity. I'm kind of saying very good. I do think it was slightly, the quality of the body was slightly better than the flavor. So as far as the competition goes, it went well because I did get a spot into the nationals, which would allow me to practice and get very serious and really dig deep and then win to go to the Worlds. However, I will be declining my position, or I already sent the letter to decline the position, because in my role as a WCE rep, that for me to compete at the national level now is a conflict, because I judge at the national levels, international levels, and not at the qualitative level or the lower levels. So for me to compete here in the same year that I'm judging is a conflict. And it's a question of like, kind of what's more important, do I pursue the championship? It doesn't, the pursue of the championship is kind of cool. The idea is cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, everybody wants to win. That would be great. The ego says it'd be great to win. But also the other side of it is like, don't know if I really want to do that. I'm enjoying this whole idea of going to other parts of the world to work with other judges and competitors and help them along. Rusty's asking, would I ever do Brewers Cup? It just, honestly, it just doesn't hold the same level of fascination for me. Like, it's cool. I like it. I oversee that as well. So I'll be basically all of the championships I oversee, right? So really, I mean, and if I didn't do any oversight of Brewers Cup for that year, I could ostensibly compete in the nationals of the United States without a conflict. But honestly, like Brewers Cup, it doesn't hold that fascination for me. Like, to me, the ultimate expression of the craft is through the barista championship. Like, it requires the most skills across the board. Not to say that Brewers Cup or Latte Art and all those other ones don't require them. It's just that to me, it's much more challenging, much more dynamic, much more interesting, the barista. And maybe that's because I started doing competitions at an era when there was only barista and not the rest. Plus, I do think that the barista is the most prestigious of them all. I think most people will agree with that. Oh, can you comment on later on your problem? I can comment on it now. So, what you guys might be, if you guys are wondering what happened with Rusty, so at this qualifying rounds, they had a multitude of the different competitions. There was the Barista Championship we talked about. There was the Brewers Cup that Rusty mentioned. There was also Coffee and Good Spirits, where you're making coffee drinks with alcohol. There was the Latte Art Championship, where you're making latte art. And then there's the Roasting Championship, where you are roasting a set green coffee and trying to bring the best out of it, competing against other competitors. Then there was the Tasters Cup Tasters. And Cup Tasters is an interesting event that's supposed to be like cupping tasting, but really it's a little bit more simplistic in that respect. It's a little more simplistic in that how it works is that you're given a set of cups, a set of triangulations. So each set has 3 cups. 2 of those are the same coffee, and then the third one is an odd coffee. You have 6 sets, 6 minutes in the qualifying rounds, 8 in the nationals. And your job is to taste all of the coffees, determine from each set which is the odd cup, and then the way you identify it, you grab it and you place it forward on the table that you're cupping on. And competitors will ask me, like, what's the secret? Like, what's your advice? And like I tell all of them, my advice is to be accurate and be fast. That's it. Because we talk about, preparing and practicing. Like in the barista competition, you want to practice. There's so much aspects of it that you need to practice. Discussion of your product, your presentation skills, your hospitality skills, your setup skills, your coffee making, your latte art, your steaming, everything comes together. Where cup tasters, I don't really know if there's any way to truly prepare for that, because it's really about you being able to discern the differences between the cups that are sitting in front of you. And pretty much if you're there's not too much to prepare for. Like your ability to taste is your ability to taste. Your ability to discern is your ability to discern. Now that develops over time. Like, I'm a much better cupper today than I was in 2004. But I don't know if there's a way to really improve that unless you're doing it regularly, right? So one of our friends, Yasmina, she was competing in the round, and we went to go watch her. So we're sitting in the audience, and then suddenly they're like, they had a no-show for one of the stations, and the MC Maria was like, does anybody want to take a spot? Because we don't have anyone in this spot. And I was just kind of like, I raised my hand, and she was like, okay, you come up and stand here and do it. So I just kind of did it as a fluke. And tasting, so you taste all 3, then you identify the one that you think is the odd cup. And I went through it pretty fast. Now, here's the thing. So I talk about being accurate, be fast, right? Accuracy is really the most important factor in that you want to identify all the correct odd cups in all the sets. So if you get all 6 correct, once you get all 6 correct, that's when your time counts, right? So let's say you get all 6 correct and the person next to you gets all 6 correct. Now you did it in 3 minutes. That person did it in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. That person then becomes ahead of you. And if you're in the first and second position, that person wins. So I did it, and I think my time was 1 minute, 27 seconds. I ended up with 3 correct, 3 wrong. No, I wasn't really, I thought I was getting it right, but some of them I wasn't sure about. Some I was totally positive about. And sadly, Yasmina did not get any of them correct. And I don't know what happened. Like I did 2 run-throughs with her here at the roastery the day before, or a couple days before, and she did really well. Like she got 5 out of 6, and I don't know what happened. Like sometimes you just make mistakes, and I mean, one of the things that in a competition setting that you're always going to have is stress, right? You always will have some level of stress. And I think maybe in Yasmina's case, her first time competing, she probably felt a whole level of stress that she wasn't prepared for. Like I remember when I first started competing in the barista competitions, I would do different regionals. I would enter in a couple of different regionals before the nationals, only not necessarily to like do well, but just to get a feel for it, just to understand the level of stress that's going to be pressured upon you so that I could work through that and be more comfortable with it. And that's the one thing that I try to be on the different stages is just comfortable, right? Relaxed, in control, comfortable. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like, for example, when I was doing the shots for espresso, you're supposed to do 4 shots. So I do 2 portafilters, right? And you split the cups. So I put the first one in, hit the button, load it up. Drop the second one in, hit the button. At least I thought I hit the button. Then nothing happened. Like I kind of noticed that the light went on, but basically for whatever reason, that shot stalled. And I looked at it for a moment and I'm like, oh gosh, did I hit the button? Is it actually activated? I wasn't sure because I'm not too familiar with the operation of this machine. And I was thinking, should I hit it again? Should I look at it more? But then I realized that if I do that, then I might give away to the judges that I don't really know what I'm doing, which means that for the station management category, they could knock me down a point for it. And I didn't want to lose that point. So I just kind of like prepared another one, used the third group head, and went and made the replacement shots for it. But that's all part of being able to manage yourself under stress. Yeah, that's what happened. So the second portafilter stalled, and then I just went straight to the next one. You know, and if that's something that you could practice, but that's also something that I think comes from, you know, working the bar in your own cafes. You know, especially you have you're trying to move the line, and you can't wait to futz around with it. So just go to the next one and keep going. So I got 3 out of 6 right. 127. I think I would have placed. So when I saw the results, I was like, I'm just a write-in. So I mean, I was just a walk-up. So I wasn't really considered part of the competition. So they didn't include me in the rankings. So I was a little bit disappointed. I was like, I would have been in the rankings. I would have actually ranked. Oh well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? How's our coffee doing? kind of bright, kind of citrusy. Nice. It's nice cold. The thing about this cigar is that my palate is dry because of it. I don't know what that is, but it is dry. Let's have a look at what Half Wheel says. The second third of the Muestra de Saka continues with much the same parts of the flavor. Pretzels add themselves to the mixture. I don't know about pretzels. Drowning out most of the pecan nuttiness. I didn't get pecan either. The orange creaminess still holds up. Maybe I'm thinking now, like there is a little bit of brightness to it. That could be if this was made in 2017, maybe that brightness is some of the remnants of the orange creaminess 5-6 years later. Otherwise, the flavor isn't that much different. That's true. There is a bit of meatiness that comes and goes. I never noticed that. But it's still a medium full mixture of vibrant breads, citrus, and cream. I would say breads and citrus could be a good way to look at it. Construction woes continue, though I can't say they've gotten any worse. I would say it's definitely, in this case, I think that it is worse in the fact that we had a flame out and it feels a little bit tighter. And perhaps that tightness is what's contributing to the dryness on the palate. I would say it's a little bit tight. So, George, how's that Allegiance doing? I don't think I'm familiar with the Allegiance. Stephen, how's that Padron 4000? Is that doing well? And then Brian's having the Julius Caesar. How's that coming along too? I had the Black Diamond from whatever the diamond one is, Diamond Crown, when I was in Chicago. That was pretty good. I think they're the same people it's all Fuente that makes it, but I don't think I've ever had the Julius Caesars. Also, speaking of the competition, if you're interested, Rusty did do a live stream of my presentation on his secondary Instagram account called Live from Obra's Kitchen. Let me pull it up here. So if you're interested, if you kind of find yourself interested in seeing that, I'm going to drop the link here. There's the link for you. You can see the video yourself, and unfortunately, the audio is really difficult in the convention center. Big, huge concrete box and underpowered speakers for the space. So the audio is really quite difficult. Brian wants to know if Steve bought him a car at Barrett's. He should have. I think he got you the F40, from what I would imagine. He was bragging about it a little while ago. And Brian says that the Julius Caesar is average. Oh, that's too bad. Because they don't go for average prices, from what I recall. It feels like it's a slow-going cigar, but I mean, it's only $9.19, and we're probably on track for the normal smoking time. I'd say we're getting close to the end of the second third. Like, it's got the same complexity, but it's not very dynamic. Like, at this moment, I'm starting to feel a little bit bored with it. I would say there's definitely some leather tones. For me, there's some like shoe polish tones. Not in a negative way, though. But I'm thinking more like a shoe wax, and I'm thinking more like a kiwi shoe wax rather than a sapphire shoe wax. I wish there was a little more oomph to it. I wish there was a little bit more free flow in the draw. Like the draw is a little bit tight now. I mean, it's been pretty much static throughout the cigar in the draw section, but there is a bit of resistance, a bit of tightness. Like right there, right there. I would say it's a good cigar. But again, I think that someone that's more in tune with Saka's palate will probably love it a lot more than I do. So if you're the kind of person that smokes the Saka lineup, all of the different ones that are on the pricier side, not necessarily the Umbagog, but the better ones or the higher end ones. If you really the kind of cigar smoker that really loves those, I think you will love this. Because that's going to be more in your wheelhouse. This, not so much in my wheelhouse. It's kind of like a Liga number 9. Good, but not necessarily in my wheelhouse. Steven says the 68 C10 Chevy in all of its patina sold for 27 grand. He was hoping for 7. Oh, man, so sorry, man. So sorry. That could have been yours at 7. But I think it maybe. So how much of the Barrett Jackson actually results in inflation of auction? Meaning that, had that same C10 Chevy been sold at an auction that wasn't as highly regarded or highly as publicized or marketed as Barrett Jackson, would it have gone for a lot less? So I'm heading off to Dublin on February 18th for less than a week, which means, we'll probably have a show there that week. That's that Thursday. What Thursday is that going to be? I got to find a venue then. I used to belong to this Dublin smokers club group, but I need to re-sign up for it. So we will be, the 23rd, February 23rd, we'll be broadcasting from Dublin, Ireland. What's the time difference? Oh my goodness. It's 2:23 in the morning in Dublin. So it'll be 1 a.m. broadcast time, local time. Perhaps some of our friends from the United Kingdom will be joining us for that show. Well, it's better. It's at least just a little bit better than the 3-4 in the morning that we do in Saudi Arabia. I'm actually looking forward to going back to Asia for the show, because then it's like 12-hour differences. So it'll be 8 a.m. start time there. That last puff got a little bit easier. The draw was easier and a little more citrusy note. Interesting. But also there's been a spike in the heat. Feeling a little bit of that tinge on the tongue. And I'm starting to feel a little bit heat away from where the burn edge is. So I feel a little bit heat right here on those fingers. So what else been happening in the world? Let's see here. The House of Representatives have ousted Ilhan Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee as Democrats cite racism. I guess they're saying that she has anti-Semitism remarks or something. I don't really know what's going on with that. And so whenever, I guess the State of the Union has not happened. I thought that happens in January. But evidently Sarah Huckabee Sanders has been picked by the GOP for the State of the Union response. I don't really watch those. Basically, it's the president telling everyone that this is what's good in the world. And then what? The opposing side will say, that's really what's bad. The United States has secured a deal on Philippine bases so that they can close the noose around China. Oh, and big news, Lufthansa has announced 4 new North American Boeing 787 destinations. All right. Lufthansa's coming here to the U.S. more. Where are they going? Frankfurt, Austin, Dallas, Denver, Montreal. Huh. Doesn't necessarily change what happens for me. I have to fly more United Metal. Even though that the Lufthansa is part of our network. Oh, and big news in the world of chicken. Bojangles will be opening 5 new restaurants in the Baltimore area. Excellent. Where we have Bojangles? Bojangles, Hillcrest, Newcastle. Well, that's no good. Those aren't even close to us. Forget it. Raising Cane is in Towson. I don't know if you guys have been to the Raising Canes yet. I've never been to the one here. I've been to Raising Canes out in other parts of the world, in Middle East and Ohio. And actually, Raising Canes is pretty tasty for chicken. Steven says he got a line on a 47 Ford Street Rod. Oh, nice. Private seller selling her local for 30 grand. Showstopper, 90 grand build. Oh, man. You gonna buy that, Steve? That would be kind of dope. 47 Ford Street Rod. What does that even look like? Oh, is that it? Something like this? That's kind of dope. Although if I had a car like this, I think I would have to wear a zoot suit and change my accent. Brian says a U.S. general predicted war with China by 2025. Well, that's not a good thing. But if we really think about it, with the pull out of the United States, U.S. forces from Afghanistan, and cessation of fighting there, we really aren't. Our military is really not doing anything. They're just kind of sitting around. We've got 230 bases or 250 bases around the world. We've got thousands and tens of thousands of servicemen, hundreds of thousands of servicemen stationed all around the world. Really, they're just sitting idle. What are they doing there? And defense companies, if we're not destroying, if we're not expending ammunition, if we're not, firing missiles, if we're not destroying like armored vehicles and tanks and stuff like that, what is the defense industry going to do? Like, we need a war in order to stimulate our defense industry. So yeah, China war with China makes sense by 2025. I mean, these companies are going to go out of business in a few years, so we need them to produce. It doesn't matter if it just wipes us all out. Those people are crazy. I think we're just dumb. They're crazy. Steve says, Padron was great. Now smoking an SLR Maduro Corona. My cheap go-to. I don't even know what that is. SLR. Oh, San Luis Rey. San Luis Rey. Gotcha. The Altada cigar. Let's have a look. Am I over 21? No. I think San Luis Reys are pretty nice overall. Ooh, that looks dark. Taste of coffee and tobacco. Nice. And Rusty says that the State of the Union is better as a drinking game. I would agree with that. When is that supposed to happen? It must be happening soon. And Tony's with us. Finally, Tony, how you doing, man? How is your Diet Pepsi? Did you find any more cheaper? And what are you smoking there? So right here is where the cigar's starting to come to break loose, meaning that it's like suddenly these last two puffs, that tightness seems to be going away. And we should be looking at our, I would say the body was remaining static. So we're going to say 825 as well. The flavor, we had it go out, but didn't really change. No, not really. So we're going to say that. We'll stay there. And Tony says that he just finished the Jura group cleaning. Oh, nice. So I will have coffee again tomorrow. Excellent, excellent. Sfumato and C Major from Crown Heads and a Diet Cherry Pepsi. Excellent, excellent. Glad to hear you got that squared away with the Jura. Having a nice natural process Colombia here. That's going very well as a cold coffee. Getting to the end of the final third. I'm going to tap that out. Yeah, definitely the draw is much easier now. Actually, I think that if the draw had been this way the entire time, it would have been really enjoyable. I think the enjoyment would be higher. Yeah, I don't know. This whole thing about Bojangles, talk about it opening in Baltimore. It's not opening in Baltimore. It's opening in other parts of the state. Oh, so evidently there's some sad news for Prince Harry after the release of the book Spare. Let's see. Prince Harry's divided public opinion, but it's had huge success, 1.43 million copies. I don't get these two. Like, no, I'm actually bored. I can't even talk about it. I can't even look at that. Everybody's obsessed with the royal family, but you know what? All I see are just a bunch of dysfunctional people. Give your son a title. He's your son, for God's sake. What's wrong with you? William, he's your brother, too. Good Lord. It's like, come on, man. Tony says the Oliva 135 is the smoke. I did not grab the Crown Heights. Oh. So instead of Sfumato, you've gone to the Oliva 135. Nice. Brian says, take it easy, Tony. Don't go too crazy with that. Evidently in London, I guess in the UK, people don't really like Harry for making these books and these allegations. And then I saw one headline not too long ago where Meghan was saying that the release of the book has hurt her brand, the Meghan Markle brand. I was like, God, are these people really talking about that? Evidently, the debt ceiling deal is no closer. McCarthy and Biden are still trying to work it out. Oh, evidently, Pope Francis is on tour, visiting the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan. Oh, wow, there's a lot of people. Congo in Kinshasa. Every year that I'm in Uganda, I always think that I would like to visit the DRC. Some years it's better to visit the DRC. Some years it's not so good. One of my friends who's from the DRC, he's always like, maybe we should go now. And then like a week later, he's like, maybe we should not go. Uh-oh. And in a state of defiance, maybe fueled by the whole revelations of Prince Harry, Australia is removing the banknotes, the British monarch, from their banknotes, would have an indigenous design rather than King Charles III, which I guess I can't blame them. King Charles is not really the most exciting of monarchs after his mother has been there for 70 plus years. In local news, the grandmother of a boy accused of shooting 15-year-old Nate Kale has been indicted. So the boy's 9, shot 15-year-old. Wow, geez. 9 and 6. These kids are just going crazy. 54-year April Gaskins is charged with a reckless endangerment and 2 counts of failing to secure a firearm with an unsupervised minor. Wow. Oh, the boy was playing with the handgun when accidentally fired, striking the girl on the head. Jeez. That's crazy. I haven't heard if they've arrested the parents of that 6-year-old. They should definitely be arresting them, especially after their claims of we keep our weapons secured. Evidently, from what someone else told me, that their idea of securing their gun was putting it on a shelf in the closet. These are the people that challenge the right of the Second Amendment. And it looks like Apple has missed their first quarter earnings as iPhone sales are falling. Uh-oh. Let's not go there. We don't want that. And China sales crater. 5% drop is the largest quarterly revenue decline since. I mean, I guess it has to happen at some point. You're building these products, and is there really need to upgrade? Like they say, between the 13 and the 14, this is the 12, this is the 10. Between the 13 and 14, there's no real advantage to buying the 14. Like there's some, cameras are better, but really, usability-wise, it's not much better. And here's the thing about interest about Apple that I like. Here you can see this is my phone, right? And I have it in a case at the moment. I must say that there's been a lot of times I've been using it without a case. And what I must say is these phones without the case are really kind of like sexy looking. Like they're nice, they're cool, they're really thin, they're small. The problem is that you drop them and they break. Like I've replaced the front glass on this one twice this past year. That's a bit of, so it's like fragile, which sucks. It's just like their laptop, like the MacBook Air that I have. Without the case, it's super sexy, super slick, super thin. With the case, it's still thin, but it's not as sexy. But you really don't want to use it without the case because they're much more susceptible to damage. That aluminum housing is just not taking drops very well. Plus, Apple iPhone sales are dropping in China, maybe because Huawei's got better phones. Look at this. A first-generation iPhone is going up for auction, and it hopes to fetch $50,000. What? An unopened first-generation iPhone 2007? That's just crazy. Originally on sale for $599. I don't know what these people are talking about. The first iPhone was, I don't remember it being $599. I remember it being more like $700. And I say that because I did end up buying that first-generation iPhone on the day that it was released. Not in the morning, when they had all the lines, but I kind of went by the Apple store late in the afternoon and they still had phones left. So I was like, I'm going to buy one. They were not cheap. They were $700. They were not $600. 3.5-inch screen, 2-megapixel camera, 4 gigabyte. I had the 4 gigabyte. Had no app store. Really? Had no app store? Ran on a 2G network. We didn't call it 2G back then. It was exclusive to AT&T, which was good for me. I had AT&T. Tony says 14 is processor and camera with a touch nicer screen and better glass, so they say. So they say. So Apple says, of course. I think a lot of people that were talking about it later were like, it's all right. Like people that I see online that have reviews about it, they're like, I don't think they're quite convinced that they should have bought one. I don't know, Tony, you bought the 14, right? What do you think? Since then, another unopened first gen like Green's auction for $39,000. What if it's like opened? I don't know how much that can go for. $10,000 maybe? I still have my first gen and I think before I put it away, I replaced the battery and replaced the glass. Well, the glass was fine. I still have my first generation. Actually, I have all my iPhones over the years. I got the first gen, I got the 4, the 6S, and then the 10. I usually wait 4 years to buy a new phone. Tony says, not yet. I solved my issues. Okay, good. I have to say the iPhone, like I was using Nokia phones back then. The iPhone really was a massive jump forward. I ended up shooting a lot of my, I used to write a blog called the Ono Coffee blog, onocoffee.blogspot.com. It's still live on the web. And a lot of the photos that are on there, they look fuzzy now. And, I shot a lot of pictures on that one and used them on the blog. Actually, it was, you guys may be familiar with that internet guy, the coffee guy, James Hoffman. Well, James is a buddy of mine. And I remember back then he was like, man, you need to use a better camera. He's like, that iPhone sucks for photos. I was like, oh man, well, it's easy. It's what I'm carrying. Back then, in the late 2000s, I was using this Nikon Coolpix point and shoot digital camera. I took that with me to Moscow. I thought the photos kind of sucked on it. Like I was really disappointed. Let's see if I can find some of those here. Mom said that he had the 11 Pro Max and finally upgraded to the 14 Pro Max because of the battery. Oh, that sucks. But I was if you have the 11, I would, it's probably better to upgrade. I should probably upgrade this one because I could use the better camera because of the website. I mean the YouTube channel. But when I had the screen replaced in Cleveland when I was there in July, I made the mistake of not replacing the battery. And then when I had it done again in Chicago over New Year's Eve, the store that I went to didn't have the battery. And I was like, oh, man. I figured I might as well replace the battery if I want to replace the glass. But well, maybe I had the 11. No, I had the 10. I had the 6. I had the 4. I had the 1. And now I have the 10. I haven't got to this one. Steve says the last Ken Block video shot on the Vegas Strip on YouTube, quite impressive. 12 million in research and development of the EV Audi used. Rest in peace. Yeah, I was really surprised that he was killed in that. It was a snowboarding or snowmobile accident, right? We had just watched a video of Ken's, the ones where he's riding he's driving the Subaru rally car through LA. Yeah, I thought that was a really great video. I really liked his personality on the video. Really sad to see that he was killed. So on that first gen iPhone, enthusiasts will have until February 19th to bid on the Tech Relic. I will not be bidding on that. And then Brian says, I only acquired used phones back then. My phone died at work, and I asked if anyone had a phone I could use. Left work that day with a perfectly good. That's a great way to go. That's a great way to go. I mean, I don't know if we really need like the most recent phones, like this one, the 10X or the X10 or whatever they call it, the 10 that I have. Man, it's got to be close to 40. Oh, yeah, it's 4 years now because the 14 just came out. So maybe next year. I'm kind of waiting for the 15. I have to say, though, when phones are now $1,200 plus, it's kind of obscene for the price. Oh, and Tom Brady has announced that he's going to retire for good this time. I mean, he did a good job. He came, he retired, came back, won the Super Bowl. Didn't make it Super Bowl this year, so he's going to retire. It's probably a good time, about time for it. Did any of you guys see the Green Comet? Green Comet was out last night, I think it was. 50,000 years since it was last seen on Earth. I don't know, though. I'm curious. Like they said, it was here 50,000 years. How do they even know? How are they even able to find this comet that hasn't been here in 50,000 years? Like, how do they know it's coming back? How do they know it's coming back? I wonder about these things. Tony says he's using his Gen 1 iPhone as a music player in my crop radio dock to sleep to. Oh, that's a good idea. Physics.org reports that Neanderthals hunted and butchered massive elephants. Wow. Like, you've got these guys, let's say they're in a village, right? And they're hunting this big mastodon or elephant or whatever they had back then. And they killed it. I guess you can kill them. They're pretty big. Look at that bone. Good Lord. But I wonder, once you kill this big elephant, it's got a lot of meat. I wonder how they preserve the meat, right? Like, you get fresh meat. It's going to spoil in like a week, maybe faster, depending where they are in the environment. Maybe 2 weeks. How are they able to consume that? Like, I can't imagine that they consume it all at once. They must have done some kind of preservation method. I mean, look at this here. Look at this. An average male elephant of about 10 tons would have yielded something like 2,500 daily portions for an adult Neanderthal. Whoa. Or they might have lived in much larger groups. Or maybe they had to leave some of it to rot because maybe if they don't have preservation techniques, then You got to eat. So you kill the elephant and then you have to leave some of it. Maybe other animals would eat it. 20 people to finish it in a week. Wow, that's amazing. I think we're getting down to the point where we can give our final evaluation. Let's go look at it. We're pretty down to towards the end. The flavor has still been very static, so I'm going to still say 8. Body's still kind of in the middle, 8.25. The draw has been tight. The burn has been okay. I'm going to say 7.5 for the draw and burn. Good plus. Why good plus? Because it went out once, almost went out twice. Consistency, I'm going to say 8.5, very good plus. It's been very consistent overall. So I'm going to say very good for overall, which is going to give us an 8 there. Let's do some addition. We've got 7.75 plus 16.25 plus 16.25 plus 16.25 plus 7.5 plus 8.5 plus 8, 80.5. Not bad. All right, let's move that over to our ranking. There we go. So that puts us third cigar of the year. Dunbarton Trust Muestra de Saka Exclusivo. Not bad. Not a bad showing. Not a bad showing. What do you guys think about that? Good, bad? Should be higher? Should be lower? Knock it out one more time. Getting down to the nub. So it kind of was like the draw, inconsistency in the draw, tight through most of it. The early part of the last third, it loosened up, much more enjoyable. Then it kind of tightened back. Like now it's back to the tightness that it's been throughout the cigar. So there it's going to be, somewhat consistent in that respect. Mom says he thought it was going to be higher. It could be. Maybe it could be higher. Like I think if it was a different person reviewing the cigar whose palate more aligns with Saka's tastes in cigars, I think it would be higher. Like I think someone that really has more alignment with Saka's palate will find the flavors to be much more enjoyable than I did. Like I said, that's why I wanted to note that earlier on, is that traditionally I have not clicked as well with Saka cigars as I have, let's say, with Roma Craft or Tatuaje. And maybe that's where the difference is. Like if we go look at our scoring again, that's Saints and Sinners, the Torpedo, which turns out to be the Drac, based on the monster Drac. And I tend to favor Tatuaje quite heavily. That got a lot. That did, of course, that's still our number one. Now, of course, the part that this proves what I'm saying is also this ranking of the Roma Craft Neanderthal HN Segundo. That's lower than this Dunbarton, and so it's kind of that's really forceful, really forceful. So I don't think I enjoyed it that much. Mom says that's me. Yes, yes. I mean, I think if you really click well with Saka cigars, I think your score would end up being higher. Brian says you didn't seem that happy with it. 80.5 is about right for a so-so cigar. I mean, I will agree with you on that. Like I must say that I don't think that I clicked with it as well as other people would. I mean, if you're the kind of person that enjoys the Liga Number 9, enjoys the other cigars from Dunbarton, you probably would have really enjoyed this one. Half wheel score, let's have a look. Now, half wheel's a little bit different in that you'll hit 91, so they're 11 points higher, 10 and a half points higher than us. But their scoring is, we don't really understand. I don't know if their score is really an apples to apples comparison because, they always seem to be much higher than what I would rank it. Saka will no doubt make comments about how $15 is too much for a cigar. While there may be some sincereness to his statement, Saka has a man that has spent far more than $15 on a cigar and is a very good online marketer, as evidenced by the wording we saw earlier. Saka's grumpies and comments aside, the Exclusiva is a very good cigar, a very good $15 cigar. Flavor-wise, it's excellent, close to sublime, but the construction needs some tightening up. A change with this make easily the forerunner to the next best new cigar of the year. I can't say that I would think that it's excellent to sublime. Good to very good is where I would say it is. Oh, and Brian's asking the question. Rusty didn't ask this one this time. Would you buy it again? No. I know we've had discussions here with like Tony bringing up that you should do 3. Like a lot of companies, a lot of these reviewers will do 3 of the cigars. I tend not to believe in that. Like unless there's some really, really, like significant problems with a particular cigar, I tend not to be the kind of smoker that wants to spend $45 to try to figure out whether or not I like a cigar. Like it should hit me on the first one. And I wouldn't say there's significant construction errors here. It was tighter, but is that really a construction problem, or is that just kind of indicative of the way that they roll this cigar? Tony says, at the end of the day, if you like what you like. If it didn't move you, 80.5 is a fair rating. I agree. I don't have any problem giving it 80.5. I'm just curious to know what you guys think or how you would compare it in your own spectrum. I've always believed that, with reviewers for any kind of medium, whether it's movies or food or anything, it's always a question of like, as you read or learn about the different ratings that the reviewer gives, you kind of have to figure out how close does your palate match to the reviewer and take that into consideration. Like if you're the person that tends to really love these Saka cigars, your rating, you probably will find this to be a little bit low and it wouldn't dissuade you. But if you find yourself more in line with the reviewer and that reviewer finds it low, then maybe you've saved yourself a little time and money. I mean, it's not a bad cigar. I mean, I am smoking it all the way down. Unlike some cigars I've tried in the world, I'm not in a rush to put it down. All right, it's probably about all that I'm going to smoke out of it. I mean, we're pretty far down. So I guess that's going to be it for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, we're back again next Thursday on February 9th. Maybe George Brightman will finally come back to the show and join us in the studio, and we'll finally get to do our Paniolo special from Hawaii. I keep saying that every week. Maybe next week. At some point, that next week will finally be here. Tony says, it's been a while since I had an Exclusivo, but for what I call my rating, would have been 87.5. Okay, cool. Very, very fair on that one. All right, so thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you spending another Thursday night with me here. Look forward to seeing you again and back in next week. So see you then. Hope you have a great one. See you next time.